Hello everybody and welcome to the Marksman Hunter 5.4 PvP Arena Guide. Today I'm going to go over the talents, glyphs, stat priorities, gems, and enchants that you need to make your Marksman Hunter the best it can be. Now I must note in advance, this is how I find my Hunter to work the best. Yours might play a little bit different and you might find different strategies to work better for you. This is just my advice on how I find it to work, so obviously take it with a grain of salt and use what works for you and modify it to make it even better. First off, talent-wise, I start with Post Haste. I know that Narrow Escape is kind of the popular way to go, but because it can be dispelled now and there's many new ways to get out of roots, I find it less important than it once was. In Crouching Tiger, Hidden Chimera, I like it, but I don't find myself frantically needing that disengage every 10 seconds. I find that 20 seconds of a cooldown is plenty fine. It was 25 back in 5.3, so they reduced it by 5 seconds, and that to me is fine. I really like the effect of Post Haste because with addition to Master's Call, you can really get a good escape out, and 8 seconds of disengage speed is quite a long time. As you can see, this will get you out of a lot of sticky situations over the course of some arenas and PvP battles. And it's still, there we go, just ended there. 30, I choose Binding Shot. I'm not as good with Wyvern Sting or Intimidation, so I choose not to go with those. And I also like the fact that if you can get the enemy to stack, be it in arenas or PvP, random battlegrounds, rated battlegrounds, what have you, if you can get people to stack, you can pop an explosive trap, and then you can either spread them out and get them stunned, or either way, you can get a whole bunch of people stunned at one time. And I find that to be very effective and just my personal choice. 45, Exhilaration isn't as beneficial because of the readiness drop. An aspect of the Iron Hawk is great when you're with a healer or in threes, but I still choose Spirit Bomb. I like the fact that it's 3% health every 2 seconds now, and I think that it is a great passive heal because if you use your Post Haste Master's Call and you can get behind a pillar, you can get underneath the tunnel in Blade's Edge, many different scenarios where you can kind of sit back and let yourself heal up, and it's very, very beneficial that way. So that's why I choose that. For level 60, I'm not a fan of Fervor or Dire Beast. I did Dire Beast in 5.3. Don't find it as beneficial in 5.4. I choose Thrill of the Hunt because now with Arcane Shot doing more damage and costing more focus, sure it's not instant, but that 20% is great, and it happens to proc like right there. It procs really easily. I have this nice little indicator telling me when it's procced, and I just find it to be very beneficial because there it just procced again, so it procs quite often, so there's a good chance your Chimera shot is always going to be 20 focus cost less. 75 talents, I switch between Murder of Crows and Blink Strikes. Blink Strikes can be beneficial because it can help your pet get to a target to pop things like Lullaby, Silence, Disarm, any pet ability that you need to pop on the enemy. It's very special and very beneficial to get that. Or you can choose Murder of Crows because it's not dispellable, so you can get that constant damage and it'll always be ticking for 30 seconds. It's not the most damage, but it's a pretty considerable amount of damage, and it really helps in your rotation because it's just extra burst damage, it's extra passive damage when you choose to use it. You can really play around with it and figure out what works in terms of when you can use it, if you want your burst macro, if you want it separate from your burst macro, whatever works. I choose not to use Link's Rush because your enemy can easily get away from your pet and then you lose stacks, so it doesn't do nearly as much damage as it could. For level 90, I choose Glaive Toss. Power Shot can be great, but since Aim Shot does more damage and a lot of people kind of use them together, I find it to be less beneficial than it was. And Barrage, it's damage without really an effect, so I don't really choose that as much. Glaive Toss is great because if your Concussive Shot is on cooldown, you can use Glaive Toss. It's only got 15 focus, a 15-second cooldown. It's a nice filler if you need it, and your Arcane Shot proc hasn't proc. It's just a great filler, and it's great to use in many situations to keep enemies off of you or to help kite so that your partners can get away from getting damaged. Glyphs. Now there's 2 that I keep on all the time and 2 that I switch out. The 2 I keep on all the time are Solace, which Freezing Trap and Scatter Trap remove all damage over time effects so it doesn't break the Freezing Trap. So I'll pop a Serpent Sting, and Scattering Shot takes out the Serpent Sting. I'll pop it again, and Freezing Trap will also do the same effect. It'll take out the Serpent Sting. So that's something that helps keep your CC on enemy targets. An explosive trap is helpful too because there are times when true damage would be nice, but if you've got a hard casting healer that maybe pops Inner Focus, Spirit Walker's Grace, anything that prevents the silence, it can be very beneficial to pop an explosive trap on their feet and then it'll knock them out, interrupting a cast when they're non-silenceable. So that can be used in very important situations, as well as just help knocking back people and playing with your pillars and playing with your positioning a little bit better. Now the two I choose to swap out are Spirit Bond, or Animal Bond rather, which does stack with Chimera Shot and the Talent Spirit Bond, so it does improve the healing there. And if I'm against a 2-caster comp, I'll switch out with Mirror Blades, so that instead of deflecting the deterrence damage, it gets reflected. So there have been times where a couple 150k Chaos Bolts have been reflected right back to that Warlock. So that can be pretty situational and pretty beneficial if you time it right. So that is Talents and Glyphs. Moving on to stat priority. Your stat priority is going to be 3% hit, 3% expertise, and then you're going to want to go into agility, obviously, is your number 1 priority, but secondary stats you're going to want critical strike, mastery, and then haste. I find that critical strike is the best to help you with that RNG to get that key Chimera Shot to put a lot of pressure on the enemy team to make them force some defensive cooldowns or make them kind of get into an oh crap situation where they have to make a move and you can kind of jump on top of them that way. And then mastery is great because if you follow a couple arena matches, couple battlegrounds, and you really keep recount on and you keep a track of it, Wild Quiver does a lot more damage than you think it does and is very, very good. So it's just a very good damage boost. And I don't find that focus regen is really boosted as much by haste as I need it to be. I was in 5.3 fully gemmed, reforged. I stacked haste like crazy thinking it was the best thing. But right now you can see my focus regen is 5.32. In 5.3 it was only 5.54. So it really isn't all that great of a benefit. Plus, I mean, the cast time, you have rapid fire and the passive ability steady focus to use, which increases your cast speed anyway, so it helps with haste and kind of works against itself. So I don't go with haste. So gems, if it's a blue gem, you're going to want to do stamina and agility, or critical strike and agility, or crit and stamina. I should probably switch that one out, to be honest. For red slots you want agility, yellow slots you want crit, and any extra like belt, or if you're a blacksmith, you're going to want agility. And then for the meta gem, 216 agility, 3% increased critical damage. That is the way to go. Enchant wise, obviously shoulder enchant, agility and crit, cloak enchant, critical strike, chest 80 to all stats, bracers 180 agility, weapon I choose mirrored scope. I cannot really keep my bank as full as I'd like, so Lord Blastington's Scope of Doom isn't always a possibility, but this way I at least get the critical strike to withhold that. And you can do a weapon chain, which is great, but I find that if you're not always against a team that can disarm, it's kind of a wasted effect. So I kind of don't use it as much, and I go more for mirror scope or the scope of Doom. That's kind of my preference. Obviously, enchant your range agility if you're enchanting. Boots, 140 agility and minor speed increase. Pants, 285 agility and critical strike. Belt obviously is the extra gem slot, and gloves 170 mastery. So that is how I play my Marksmanship Hunter. That is how I gear it up, get it all ready to go. Obviously, like I mentioned, this is going to be different for everybody, and this is just how I find it to work the best. So I hope that you enjoyed this video, and I hope that this helps. If you have any suggestions, leave it in the comments below, within reason of course. And otherwise, I thank you for watching. Please feel free to leave a like and share with your friends. That would be a great help. If you have a hunter friend that you know wants to get help geared up, I find that 5.4, it's better than Beast Mastery and Survival, especially after the Chimera Shot hotfix. So it does a lot more damage and is pretty lethal and pretty good in survivability. So thank you for watching. Have a wonderful day. Man.
The intimidating shadow.